take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Take Flight Podcast. This is episode number 189, and we are back again this week with a Take Flight Takeaways bite-sized episode. And this week it's my turn, Shuwel, to host an episode for you. Now, for those that are new, these Take Flight Takeaway episodes are short bite-sized episodes of around 10 minutes where each of us take turns sharing some takeaways and learnings which we think would be of value to others. Now, in case you haven't checked out any of these takeaway episodes before, I highly recommend you check them all out. Now, this week, I will be reflecting on recent networking experience, what I have found that has worked best for me to make the most out of these experiences, and also, as always, to be transparent with you all, the downsides of some of these networking experiences to give you the real full picture. Now, firstly, the context of why I wanted to talk about this in this week's episode. So, 3 experiences this year which have given me the opportunity to network and meet like-minded people. The first one is my experience at Cambridge University, which I've spoken about in previous episodes. The last few months of the studies finished earlier this year, and that gave me the chance to connect with 130 leaders in different industries. The other example of networking that I wanted to highlight was from my recent experiences at real estate networking events. A few weeks back, I got invited to the Savoy's property event, which is hosted every quarter, which is an amazingly fun networking party for people in the real estate industry with a focus in the UK. And then the third example that I wanted to highlight was my recent travel experiences, where I had the chance to travel to Monaco in the south of France for a weekend trip with a group of entrepreneurs in different fields. And we were fortunate enough to fly there private too, which added to the experience. Now, in all those examples that I mentioned, in some shape or form, there was networking involved, and it gave me the opportunity to meet people from different backgrounds and expertise to help each other grow personally and professionally in some shape or form. Now, in this next section, I wanted to share some steps that have helped me to make the most of these networking opportunities that I find myself in. So, the 5 things I wanted to share. One is intention. So I think it's very important before you're going into an event or a program or any type of experience to have a clear intention on what the actual event is and the program that you're going to be joining. Have a clear objective of what you're trying to get out of it, even if that objective is, I just want to go there to have fun, or I want to go there to connect with people in a specific industry, or I have this particular problem, this is what I'm trying to solve, or I would love to help people in problem X. At least having an intention going into it gives you a clear idea going into it, especially as time is such a commodity nowadays. So the first thing is to be clear on intention. The second one is when you're actually at the event as well, to ensure that you manage your energy. Now, energy, like anything in life, is extremely important. You can sense when you've walked into a room and you've got good energy in you, you feel like you have energy, people around you can feel that. Also, on the other side of things, if your energy is low and you walk into a room, you're not really going to be able to make the most of it and make the most of the engagement that you could have with the people around you as well. So during the event, make sure you keep an eye on your energy. The third element of networking that I think is important is that post follow-up. So if there's anyone that you spoke to that is working in the field that you're in, that has done something that you're looking to do, or is looking to try and grow in an area that you are already in, that follow-up is extremely important. And having that follow-up and acting on it can actually pay extreme dividends later on as well, because people remember that not only did I connect with this person, but they've been able to help me with X after following up, because 99% of people really don't follow up. Now, the fourth element that I think is important is sharing your story. Now, not everyone will feel comfortable with this, right? But your story of who you are, where you've come from, what you're doing, and where you're going, once you start sharing this to people, whether it's in person or online beforehand, it starts to attract people that are interested, that want to help, or are in similar fields. Now, a frame that really helps me to put it into perspective is see your story as a lighthouse. And the more people that you're able to share that story with, the journey that you're going on to the destination that you're looking to go towards, it will start to shine a light around you. And then the people that can hopefully help you to get there, or people that you can help, will start to come towards your direction. So I think it's extremely important in any networking opportunity that you're given, to try to find an opportunity to share your story, whether that's beforehand, during, or after, because this will add on to getting more people towards your direction and vice versa. And then finally, the last component, the fifth component that I wanted to share is compounding. And over time, these relationships that you're able to build during these networking opportunities, they start to compound. The more you're able to go to them, the more events you go, similar events, but in maybe other environments. And these relationships start to compound over time. It's just important to stay consistent, ultimately have the right intention, make sure you follow up, help people, etc. So that compounding really does build over time. So those were the 5 areas that I think are important to make the most out of networking: having a good intention, managing your energy during it, always follow up post event, share your story, and then ultimately let the compounding work in this area. Now, a couple of examples I wanted to share and how this frame helped. So my Cambridge experience. So I've spoken in a few episodes now about my experience at Cambridge University. I remember on day 1 when I walked into the class, I felt very anxious and I felt a little bit nervous. Now, going into a program like that, I already had the identity of what I thought I stood for clear in my mind. I also had an identity in my corporate background. I also had an identity in Ahmed Capital Group that I started, of what I thought I was good at, areas that I needed to develop, etc. But then when you walk into a room and all of these people are very distinguished and successful in their own respective fields, it suddenly jars you a little bit, because suddenly you realize, okay, I'm in a room with some great people and I need to really bring my level up, but also become even more clearer on what is it that I stand for, what is it that I actually want to achieve, or which areas do I want to grow in. And it's only when you're in a room with really high performing people that this opportunity comes about and you can really refocus on the areas that you want. Now, for me going into it, my intention was to learn and network. And then I quickly realized that actually the content was the content, and a lot of the content you can find in different platforms, especially nowadays. But the real value from that experience was in the relationships that I could build on the course, ultimately the network and the networking that I could do. Now, during the classes, it was also intense during those long weekends of back-to-back classes. And I'd end up having to stay out later to really make the time with the students. So there it became very important on managing my energy, as I was saying, to ensure that during that time when I was with the students in the social environment, my energy was higher. And then the times where I was away from the classes, away from the students, I really needed to make sure that I got good sleep, got good recovery. I really ensured that my energy was being managed to ensure that on the downtime, I could really replenish my energy as much as possible. And then, of course, after every weekend of class I had at Cambridge, it was important that I had that follow up. So I had to connect with the people that were interested in real estate or pharma or healthcare, any areas that I had an interest in. That follow up became even more important to build that relationship over time. And during the course, over that 20-month period, I was able to share more about my story, what drives me, my family history, where I'm trying to go. And the more I was able to share this with people, the more people were able to come out and connect with me as well. So again, that component of sharing your story in a networking environment really paid dividends. And then last but not least, that compounding. So this was a 20-month program. That's 20 months of seeing these people again and again and again. And over time, that compounding naturally worked its magic. And then by the end of the 20-month period, I think I was able to have a decent conversation with pretty much everyone in that class. That was almost 130 people. And then the ones that I could really connect with, those relationships are relationships that I will be able to cherish for forever moving forward. Another example that I wanted to walk through using that framework that I just mentioned earlier was from my recent trips to Monaco and the real estate networking events. For both of those, I had a very clear intention of what I wanted to achieve beforehand. So I wanted to meet, reconnect with people that are working in fields that I either have an interest in, that I'm working with now, or that I'm looking to move towards in the future. Now, it's important during all of those events to keep my energy high, and afterwards follow up with the people that I could connect with. Again, share my story. What are we working on? Where can I help you with? And then over time, the more I've gone back to these events over and over again, the better the experience, the more the relationships build. And then again, the compounding starts to work in your favor. Now, these are the areas that I thought have helped me to make the most out of any networking opportunity that I find myself in. But of course, like anything, there are some pros and cons and some downsides. So as we've always been transparent in our Take Flight Takeaways episodes, I wanted to highlight some of the downsides with networking and considerations for you to keep in mind. 3 areas that I think are important to consider. One is the energy. So I've spoken about this a lot, but it's something that is important for me, to manage your energy rather than managing your time. Now, like anything, especially with networking events, they take a lot of time and a big effort to make sure you're showing up all the time with the right energy, with the right mindset. Now, for me, that's meant over the last couple of years to fly in to the country that I'm going into to spend 5, 6, 7, 8 hours sometimes traveling for a 20-minute exchange. But this is why it's important to have a very, very clear intention beforehand, because then once you're there on the ground, you know what you're trying to achieve, and it makes it a lot easier to process when you're in the moment. But it's definitely a consideration to keep in mind that this does take a lot of energy. The other component that I wanted to mention is cost. So, like everything, it costs time and money to get to these particular events. Now, for me, the biggest benefits that I find is that whenever I've had to sacrifice time, money, energy, then it's always come back to me 10x. So this is something that I need to keep in mind whenever I go to these events or programs or courses, etc. And everyone is at their own respective level, right? I've been fortunate enough to spend more than £100,000 in my personal development, but I've met people that have spent millions and people that have spent single digit thousands or a few hundreds. Everyone's at a different level, but I'd recommend to find the area that works for you, for where you are right now and for where you want to go, and invest in that cost, because it will come back. But it is something to keep in mind. These things do cost in some shape or form. And then the final consideration to keep in mind is not every event will be 10 out of 10. Every event that I've been to, majority have been great, but there've also been some events where I've come away from it and I thought that maybe I could have spent my time elsewhere. Or I show up to these events and I was actually more tired than I would have liked. Or maybe I haven't been able to connect with as many people as I would have liked to have done, or talk to as many people as I would have preferred to. Or maybe I went there and I realized, actually, do you know what? My energy is quite low today. There is an upside and downside to all of these things, where it's something to consider. So those are the three things that I would consider to keep in mind, which can sometimes be the downside of networking. Energy, which is very important to manage that, because this does take a lot of energy and time. Cost, like anything that's worthwhile, there is some type of cost to it, whether it's this time or financial cost. And then the last thing is have an expectation that actually not every event will be 10 out of 10. That's okay. Make the most of the events that you go to, and the ones that weren't so good, at least you know for next time. Now, personally, I love spending time with people. And this may come as a surprise, actually, to many of you, but 90% of the time, before an event, before a Cambridge weekend, before I have to travel somewhere in the world to meet someone or to do some type of personal professional development, I have a voice at the back of my head saying, Shuwel, stay at home, chill, relax. You don't really need to go. Just enjoy yourself, relax. It's fine. And it actually makes me laugh, because I've had this voice in the back of my head saying this for probably the best part of 10, 12 years, probably even back in the uni days. Now, you would think over time that voice disappears. It actually doesn't disappear at all for me personally. I still get that sometimes. But the funny part is, over time, the voice may not disappear, but your willpower to ignore the voice actually does. I think I'm proud of the fact that, even though it can be quite embarrassing to say that, this voice is still in the back of my head saying, sure, just chill out, relax, spend a few more days on holiday. You don't really need to do this. Take a couple of extra days off. But being able to have that willpower to ignore that voice and go to these events, spend that time, money, financial cost in some cases, to make the most of these experiences, that willpower is something that has continued to develop, and I know it becomes even more important the longer I go on this journey. So that's the end of this week's Take Flight Takeaways episodes. In case you have any questions, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can find me personally on LinkedIn under the name Shuwel, Shuwel for Lima, or Instagram at Shuwel1. Please make sure to check out our previous Takeaways episodes in case you haven't. And if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe or follow to us on whichever platform you listen to us on. We are also now on TikTok. And if you could, we don't really ask for much from our listeners, but if you could leave a review for us on whichever platform you listen to us on, it will really mean the world to us. If you like this episode, by the way, I'd recommend checking out episode 172, which was another takeaway episode where I shared how I've invested over £100,000 in my self-development since 2019 and the benefits of that, including touching upon this networking component that I talked about today. We'll be back next week with a new group episode for you, the Flyers. Keep on taking flight and flying high. Peace.
Take off, take flight with you. Yeah, for we never fly, but